All right, so let's talk about the SEC tournament for a few minutes. You get started tomorrow night, 5 o'clock Central Time, Ole Miss and Missouri in the 13-12 game. The winner will face LSU in the second round. The nightcap is Georgia and Vanderbilt. The winner gets Alabama in the next round. Missouri's beaten Ole Miss twice in the regular season. Missouri went 11-20, 5-13 in the SEC. Ole Miss went 13-18 overall, 4-14 in the SEC. I got no idea how that game shakes out. None.
This isn't flippant. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't. Ole Miss did beat LSU in the regular season for whatever that's worth, but whatever. That was a night where they shot like 80% for the first 17 minutes of the game.
And then held on for dear life.
I remember that game.
Yeah, they absolutely did. And then Georgia, Vandy, I would be shocked if Vanderbilt did not win that game to set up a meeting with Alabama.
Georgia's already announced they're moving on from Tom Crean.
From Tom Crean. You're right. So day 2 will be Florida and Texas A&M in the early game. Really big game for the Gators. We talked about that with Dane just a second ago. The winner of Ole Miss, Missouri against LSU. The first game of the night session, Mississippi State, South Carolina. And then the nightcap on Thursday, Georgia and Vanderbilt. So that's day 1, all of those games. Day 1, 2, and 3, Days 1 and 2, all on the SEC network, and then they're split between ESPN, SEC network the rest of the way.
It's a shame we're not involved in this. And I don't mean our show. I mean the state of Mississippi. I mean, they're playing, but they have no shot at winning, and there's nothing that can be gained. I mean, I guess State can make a run and win on Sunday. I guess Ole Miss, they can't do it. They just went 4-14. Neither team is playing meaningful basketball this week, and it's a shame. This is what I had a conversation with a friend over the weekend about this with baseball. He jokingly said, Ole Miss should just use the pavilion for concerts and focus all their money in baseball. He was joking, but I said, this is so much fun. You just don't remember that it is because your team hasn't been in it for years. I mean, it's been since pre-COVID, which feels like 2 decades ago.
Yeah.
4 years ago was the last time you were in this. Remember how fun that was?
And the last time Mississippi State was in the tournament, it's almost like they weren't. And I don't mean this as a shot at all. It's because the game was in San Jose, California, with just a whatever start time.
It's like 10:30 Central,
Liberty,
right?
And they lost.
No, it was the earlier game, but I mean, you're not wrong. And think back to that season too. State was a 5 seed. They were in the tournament the whole way. There was never a net rankings that came out that you didn't look at and go, State's not in. And yet it was just painful. You know, State had some unexpected losses. Again, we talked about Howland so many times. Lost that game at home to Ole Miss in front of a packed house. Everybody showed up, beat Ole Miss. Let's get this thing going, and you lose to them that on Blake Henson career day, and it was just never the same.
30 or 33.
Oh my God! They couldn't guard him.
Yeah.
And I just remember that it was just not enjoyable. You just mentioned how fun it is. State still didn't have big crowds that year throughout the season, and then they go out and lose to Liberty, and that was it.
Yeah, I mean, to think about a time when Mississippi State fans and Ole Miss fans at the same time were really, really fully engaged in college basketball. You've got to go back to the early 2000s?
Yeah. When Ole Miss had the Provine posse and Stansberry's, when he had Mario Austin and Zimmerman and those guys, those were good battles, yeah.
I mean, that's the last time you had both fan bases just completely engaged at the exact same time.
And now there's none. I mean...
And your friend's sentiment, I hear it too. I hear people just find a coach, Pay him $1 million a year. Who cares what happens? Put that money into football and baseball.
And I'm not okay. I am, because that's just a ridiculous sentiment. I know we love baseball here. Baseball's awesome. That's a ridiculous sentiment.
Dude, basketball's so much fun when the teams are good and fans are engaged.
It is so
much fun.
On top of the fact that it makes your school money. It helps your school academically, not as much as football, but if your basketball teams are good, you get national games, you get national profile, and it elevates your school, just like football to a much lesser degree. But I promise you, Auburn's getting a whole lot out of this run right now. I promise you.
Auburn basketball did not matter at Auburn.
No.
It didn't matter at all. You know, from the time when Cliff Ellis made the run with Chris Porter until they hired Bruce Pearl, really, there was just a lot of Tony Barbee and whatever else going on with Auburn basketball.
Most schools in the conference looked at the schedule and looked at Auburn and said, win.
Yeah. They did. Alabama has embraced basketball. Now, it will forever be a distant second to football. But Auburn basketball is still a distant second to Auburn football. There's no reason that you can't have a fan base that is completely engaged in both.
And we've seen it here. Hey, Dad and I talked about this one day when you were off. I forget where, but we were talking about crowds and stuff and what it means. And somebody texted and said, well, it's really hard to get people to go to a Wednesday night game. I said, no, it's not. You want to know how I know that? Because I've seen Ole Miss and State fans, it's been a little while for State fans, more so than Ole Miss, go to games on Wednesday night. Mm-hmm. You're not putting 9,000 people in your arenas on a Wednesday night. That's a really hard ask. But you've seen packed, engaged, rowdy buildings on weekdays. That's a cop-out. It can be that way here. And this SEC tournament is an example of, like you're on the outside looking in at how much fun everybody's having inside. And we're not having any fun right now. This is not fun. This sucks that this week does not matter here. Good basketball, meaningful basketball, is so much fun as a fan. And it's very important to your school. So
what do you guys remember about the SEC tournament growing up?
State never won a game in it until 1996. Literally, never won a game. Won the SEC championship in 1991, lost in the first round at Tennessee. And then the 96 run was their first, when they won the tournament, was their first ever wins in the tournament.
Wow.
And so I remember that very vividly, that incredible run to beating the number one team in the nation and down there in New Orleans. And, remember that. Remember, 01, they won it again with Mario Austin and that group there, beat Alabama, who had won the SEC. Those great battles. Two guys who didn't like each other at the time, Stansbury and Mark Godfrey, did not like each other. Some good memory. And then, in 09 when they won it again, and Bernardo and Barry Stewart when they beat Tennessee there in the championship.
I remember in junior high, and I've told this story before, Miss Bigham, my English teacher, who was pretty straight-laced. She was by the book. She let us bring the TV in and watch the SEC basketball tournament. Whether it was Ole Miss or Mississippi State or whomever playing in the early games. It was a big deal. It was so much fun. It's just not terribly engaging right now for us in